Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check brought to you by BB. There is no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about markets. Welcome, guys. Happy Wednesday. Kind of hard to believe it's the middle of the week. I mean, this is, for me, the first time I'm kind of speaking with you guys this week. Obviously, I wasn't here yesterday. We had Monday as a holiday, but I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to talk markets. Despite the title, right, which is that seemingly this never-ending chop that we've been in, at least for the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've been in this very constant state of massive volatility over the course of a few days. The volatility dies out, and then you just kind of have to wait for that next moment to take advantage of. But welcome, guys. I'm Tommy. You also know me as Snorlax. I'm joined by Chef Jackus, and soon we will be joined by Tucker as well. He is finishing up an errand. But yeah, happy Wednesday, guys. I hope we've all had a great start to the week. It looks as though, from what I can gather, so far this week has been very much in line with kind of what we're used to, right? We get a big impulsive move on a Monday. We revert that move on Tuesday, as it is so appropriately named. And then after that, we begin to hopefully, no longer chop, begin to kind of carve out our actual direction for the week, which, we'll definitely discuss on this show. But before we can do that, guys, before we can get cooking, before we can get too deep into any potential alpha that we might have for you, you know what I'm going to ask you, and that is to smash the like button. Destroy the like button if yesterday's red candles frustrated you. Destroy the like button if Monday's green candles excited you. In either case, we're very appreciative when you guys hit the like button. And of course, it means a lot, not just to us as a team, but also to the growth of the channel. Having you guys continue to hit the like button. I know it's a small thing, but it might be annoying, but it always, pays big dividends for the channel, for our continued growth and exposure that YouTube, the algos, those magical algos and the tech overlords, as Max calls them, at YouTube. It goes a long way. So if you could hit the like button, we would be very appreciative. We are going to have a great show today. But let's talk about the markets, guys. It does, like I said, I mean, it's kind of been a pretty similar script to what we've seen in previous weeks. We got an impulsive move on a Monday. Mean reversion on Tuesday. We definitely hope there's going to be more volatility later this week. Although maybe, you're in that camp where you're like, I can't take it anymore. Please, no more volatility. I need a little bit of range and chop to cool down, because I know we've had a lot happen in the last week. I'm sure we discussed it yesterday. I wasn't here to do it as well. But, since I've last seen you guys, Argentina launched a new shitcoin. We've had all of that drama. I definitely like to talk about that today. And obviously the implications for crypto, good and bad. Of course, Solana under the microscope now as well, because of kind of how that's panned out. We mentioned, I think, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, the relationship between Sol versus Bitcoin and ETH. Is it possible for Sol to continue to capture an increasing mind share against Bitcoin and ETH? Given the events that we'd seen over the last really 3 to 4 months, but probably longer than that, but especially in the case of the last week or so. Solana is definitely a big topic of conversation. All of these meme coins continue to be a topic of conversation, although this time, probably not for all of the right reasons. At least, some of these insider coins, like a Libra, for example. I won't call out anybody else's coin in the intro, but if the shoe fits, right? But on the topic of Bitcoin, Bitcoin's still just kind of doing what Bitcoin Bitcoin does, which is retain value against altcoins and, kind of just go on its merry way. I guess we're still kind of waiting for Bitcoin to pick a direction out of this range that we've been in for effectively, how long has it been now? Since basically since like right after the election. Holy cow. I mean, we've almost been up here for 3 months, which is pretty wild to think about. But of course, we'll talk about your altcoins as well. I think the biggest utility for most of these altcoins for the last few weeks is that they've been vehicles for volatility. If you're a trader, if you love lower time frames, shout out BB Terminal, by the way. If you love trading on lower time frames, there's been so much opportunity and all of these assets and all of these coins just ping pong back and forth. Even the ones that haven't been trending, they're giving you these really 10 to 20% swings intra-week. So lots of opportunity still present in the market. I'm taking advantage of the volatility. Obviously, we're going to talk about the volatility and a lot more. But Jackus, how are you doing? Hold on, I wanted to highlight this comment. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited to be back on Market Check, man. We've had a lot happen over the last few days, and yeah, I mean, coins are kind of going sideways, but I feel like we're priming a bigger move across all markets.
I was laughing. Hey Tommy and hey everyone. I was laughing at the comment here. This one, and then there was also the one of like only Messi can save Argentina, man. And so forth. And yeah, sometimes it's funny. I love it when it's funny. I love when there are good vibes regardless of the market and what's happening. Although obviously if you've been playing the stock market or commodity market with us, then it's an entirely different story. But obviously most people are here for cryptos, and we know what crypto has been up to since December pretty much. So that is that. But yeah, no, there is not only two of us. I think Tucker should join later on, but he's a little bit late, so he's going to be here pretty soon. As also, as also looking at this one, because normally you'd say the 9 to 5 job, but in crypto it's 9 to 7, so that you can buy the dip, right? But yeah. And Max is making 20-minute Max video. Yeah, so Tommy, you said that you've been here. By the way, we missed your intros. I'm not sure if you rewatched the stream yesterday, but we were like, Jesus, Tommy's not here. Who does the intro and outro, and how does it do? And I let Tucker do it, and I think he handled it well, but obviously, he's not Tommy, so
It takes a little bit of work to get used to it, but I don't know. I mean, I think I would like to credit my intros to my morning coffee, because realistically, after I have that little first burst of caffeine, I just feel ready to yap for a little bit. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, it's like I was saying, though. I think there's been a lot that's happened in crypto since I was last live on Market Check. That's kind of just the nature of our market. Is you never know when any random weekend, for example, there could be a meme coin scandal involving the president of a major country. It's just absolutely wild. I don't think you can find Libra on TradingView, but obviously we should probably talk about Sol if it has any impact on things like Bitcoin and ETH, obviously, as well. I tend to think that, generally speaking, what we're seeing on Solana is not great optics for the space. I know that's like very much a Captain Obvious statement, but I guess it's a question of, do you think that that ends up eventually reflecting in Solana's price, or that it's already been priced in? For that reason, I kind of feel like Sol is kind of the most interesting major at the moment, because, I mean, let's be honest, Bitcoin's been going sideways for 3 months, and ETH is, I think, still undecided on what role exactly it wants to play in this market.
Well, indeed, I nearly forgot that, you haven't been around since the Libra launch, really?
Say it again?
You haven't been around since the Libra launch?
I haven't been around Market Check since the Libra launch. I've been around the Discord, but
okay. Yeah, then that's crazy, man. That's crazy. Yeah, obviously it has affected Sol. I think basically Sol still was going pretty well until that Trump, Melania, and Libra launch as the most significant one. I know there's been few, and basically since then, since the initial pump, it's been, down. And one can, I think we are going to get a pretty sizable bounce on Sol, but soon. But one makes you wonder if, like, we are. I think we are pretty close to breaking here, and I think lots of people on Sol get really annoyed lately, and I think we've quite clearly seen people leave and buy Ether, because like the day Sol was really pumping, we saw ETH being up on that day a lot, which obviously got faded later on. But I think, and I'm not saying everyone has done it, but there has certainly been some people that has done so. And yeah, I do not really have an answer to this, but I would generally think that if this meme dilution and celebrity coin launches end, I think it has to be net positive for the space.
I think so. I mean, we've all recognized that for a while, Sol has been, when we talk about crime in crypto, it's always jokingly, but we all acknowledge that it occurs. And I think we can all agree that the biggest beneficiary of crime this cycle thus far has been Solana, at least if the last few months are any example. But we've kind of hit this saturation point, right? Where too much, I would argue that too much crime has been committed. To the point where Solana, and I'm going to quote one of the best traders I know, he says Solana is morally bankrupt. I think that's a great way to kind of describe what's going on. But as far as the pricing, right? I mean, I look at this market structure and, I could see a bounce coming, right, Jackus? I mean, we swept the low that we formed in mid-January. In theory, this should be where you would put in a bounce. But I also, I don't think the momentum on this looks the best. And if I were to just kind of invert this chart, it does not really look the most promising. So, I mean, yeah, I could mess around a little bit more here, but I kind of think that this is an asset that's beginning to enter a much larger high time frame downtrend at the moment. I know that's, maybe that's a controversial opinion. Maybe it's not after the last week that we've had. I know Sol is down about like 30 or 35 points from like a week ago, but I think the momentum on it could, people might underestimate this momentum here into this low. Like, yes, we could get a bounce, but we are early, in my opinion, to a trend shift here. And if that's the case, well, I guess we'll see what happens to Solana. But at the same time, I will say, and I think you mentioned this on the Discord call this morning, there are meme coins that I think are in pretty deep value levels. And I think we will look back on some of these levels, even if they do go lower, as being good buys for some of these meme coins. I look at something like Popcat, something that I've been looking at, something that could signal maybe, maybe Sol is beginning to form a bottom here. I'm personally skeptical of that, but obviously I do have my eye on some Solana memes to keep on my shopping list here over the next few months.
Yeah, definitely. Let me share a screen here for a brief moment, and then I'll give it back. So first of all, it's very important to keep in mind that I would probably wait for a weekly close here. What you do not want to see as a Sol holder is Sol losing this low on a weekly closing basis. And keep in mind, they can, it's still just Wednesday, so they can still run it once again lower, and the weekly candle can still on Sunday look to be closing on Saturday still look to be closing like this, but then on Sunday it comes back. So as long as it's holding this weekly demand, I think it still has a chance. The problem I see is that we already had first bounce here, then we swept the low again into the weekly demand and ran to new highs and then rejected again. So that's a bit of a problem to me there. But I was also saying here, and I was buying here, if you guys remember, I was buying here and I was buying here, and because weekly demands simply are the best. And it also helped. And I was also saying, hey, I could see a potential scenario in which, like, sure, we are on the edge, and if it loses this low, it's likely going down. But guess what? We held it, right? So I think it's really like on the edge, and you wanna see how the weekly closes, but I'm not as confident, and I think. By the way, just because you would get a weekly close below here doesn't mean straight nuke. When you get a close below, let's say here, you tend to get big bounces still, which can still happen. But the structure gets broken at that point. So just trying to explain myself more further. But yeah, it's it's a really tough time. Like you really ran from here, you swept the highs, it was right on the Trump launch. You are rejecting now. You really do, as a bull on Sol, you really do need to see this level hold here.
Yeah.
And I'm worried if BTC were to push lower, I'm not sure if Sol manages to hold here. So we'll see what the market gives us. We'll see what the market gives us at the end of the day. I think
Sol kind of has the. Sorry for interrupting you, Jack.
No,
Sol
good.
kind of has like that perfect storm of timing, right? Where it's got horrible FUD coming. I think not quite after a structure break, right? I mean, you're highlighting it. This is a huge level of demand that we're trading into. So I guess in theory, people would be saying, "Oh, we're seeing all of this FUD into support for Solana," but I actually think it's kind of like this perfect storm of downside momentum potentially forming alongside that FUD. At the same time, sentiment's just kind of souring on Solana. Maybe it's incorrect to do that. I think at the very least, the dilution that we've seen from all of these scams over the last year and a half will, if nothing else, continue to, at least I would say over the course of like the last few weeks, we've kind of seen, like you said, ETH is beginning to kind of take, I wouldn't call it outperformance, right? Because ETH has been going sideways, but we're seeing ETH hold up much better than Solana here over the last probably 2 or 3 weeks. I think we're finally seeing a shift as far as, who is going to be outperforming, second half of this bull run, however you want to kind of determine the time frame. Like the Sol underperformance, we're probably over or past the phase where Sol as the market leader from an outperformance standpoint, I think we're past that part. What do you think about that?
Sorry, I just laughed about this comment. That ending, man. What if it's other way around? What if it's like everything not goes except ETH? But
I mean, that happened on what was it, like Friday or Saturday night? I feel like it was.
Yeah,
everything was flat and ETH was up randomly like 5 or 6%.
I know, man. I know. It was a one day it was a few hours excitement. I remember Whiskers asking me in Discord, and he was like, "Hey, do you think that like this bounce that we talked about, do you think it can last like 1 or 2 days?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's possible." And then just that same day, he was like, "Wow, I didn't expect it to end in hours."
That meme that whenever ETH is pumping, it's time to de-risk. Like I keep waiting for that to be disproven.
Yeah,
and it's still not being disproven. But I think that we at least over the weekend, I would say that we saw that squeeze probably because of people leaving Solana and heading to ETH. I think people do want to believe in something. As much as the financial nihilism narrative is popular, as much as it's parroted, people come to crypto because, yes, they want to get rich, but also even just subconsciously, I truly believe that people want to believe in something if they're coming to crypto, right? And that can mean a lot of different things. But I don't think that it's purely value extraction. Or if it is, I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that.
That's a good point. And by the way, hello, Big Tuck. Hello, who joined us.
Hello.
It's not just it's not just two of us. We promised.
Oh, is that a Die Hard sweater?
That's Bruce Willis right there, bro.
Wow,
that's Big Bruce.
Is that a Christmas movie, Tucker? It's an important question.
I mean, I think it is. Yeah. Do you?
Yes, it's a Christmas movie.
Before we let Tucker cook on something, you had a question which I just forgot what it was, and I didn't want to skip it. Sorry. Do you remember? Yeah. You were asking me, and I accidentally skipped it. But
damn, I don't know if I can remember. It had something to do with ETH. Believing in something along those lines. I'm not sure, but
it was right before I I pulled that comment in.
I can't remember.
Never mind. We'll probably get to it again, hopefully. But yeah, yeah, we were just discussing, man. Like, because apparently Tommy last visit on the stream was before the Libra launch on Market Check. And so we were discussing that and Sol, and like the day when Sol was breaking lower here is when we saw ETH getting bid, and like people were flipping from Sol to ETH to some degree, or do you think that's not happening? I think we touched upon that yesterday, just if you want to add something to that and to get you into the convo.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, what do you think of Sol here, Jed? I think Sol looks pretty rough here, man. I think Sol's gonna come down a little bit more, because we were looking at. I mean, I like where Wick 2, and it's somewhat constructive of low time frame, but we were looking at. I don't know if you saw this, Tommy, but we were looking at Sol compared to the SPX, the meme coin, yesterday, and it looked it looked pretty similar, which implied a little bit lower, right? But I don't know.
There was also that convo. That's true.
Whenever ETH pumps things up, yeah. Well, it's been a long. Well, I would say that's somewhat not true, because ETH hasn't had a good pump in a long time, and things have dumped. So,
And I remember people used to tell me the same about XRP, and I said, "Don't fade XRP," and then it broke out and broke that narrative of whenever XRP pumps, everything dumps. And I remember people were shorting the market, or expecting the market to top because of XRP, and it did not happen, and it broke that. So there is a good chance that one day, whenever ETH pumps, it will no longer be that fake pump, and it will change. But yeah, hopefully that comes soon again. You know how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously a bit more of a believer in ETH than others, which is kind of funny to hear from me, because I literally fought ETH for like a year straight. But I think I made the comment probably 2 or 3 weeks ago that how ironic would it be if what brought us out of this period of financial nihilism that crypto is so infatuated with throughout this bull cycle is actually ETH, or fundamentals on ETH. And I know, me saying that is funny in itself, right? Like, why would I care about fundamentals? Why would I care about ETH? Well, I mean, if you believe the market's priced inefficiently, this is the type of sentiment that you fade. And that's not to say that and I've said this before, I don't think that ETH is done with the downside on USD, but I do think against something like Sol, and probably even coming out here over the next probably 6 to 12 months, that narrative is going to heat up, in my opinion.
Well, Tommy, because I'm just thinking, because I agree, right? I think, and some people have been talking about it, right? Like a rotation into ETH, rotation into specifically utility, even though obviously I think the ETH memes will run too. But I feel like there hasn't been a ton of utility, I don't want to say innovation, but progress since 21. You know what I mean? I mean, I was just thinking oh, utility ETH, what do you bid? Link, Uni, like I don't even know. Like, what do you even make her?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
No,
Yeah,
I
I
know.
agree.
that's
You
the
bid.
toughest part.
And
Yeah.
I think part of the problem is that when people say utility, we're referring to coins with very heavy bloat from VCs that just aren't very attractive for investors. And maybe those coins are never something that retail is going to be interested in investing in. But what I do remember in the last bull market was that the winners, especially within DeFi, were ultimately the protocols that allowed you to use your ETH, right? Not just spend your ETH for something that had higher ROI, but lend, stake, generate a yield. Obviously, we can argue about the pontification of DeFi, but I won't. But ultimately, I do feel like that is where the biggest utility was finding ways to kind of creatively generate yield on existing assets, and in turn, it appreciated the ETH price. So I don't want to, when we say utility, it almost feels like it's broad brushing, because truthfully, there really aren't that many products in crypto that you can say, okay, well, this has a genuine utility. But I kind of feel like that's kind of in line with what I've been saying is a possibility, that we're seeing a mid-cycle correction from beta right now. Like, this was almost kind of a false cycle in a sense for altcoins thus far. And as we're coming out of it, we probably see actual mainstream adoption for altcoins in a sense, like, because if it doesn't happen, then it won't, in my opinion, at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a nihilist, so I believe that we will find utility.
I agree with that too. And I do not care even if it is true, right, Tommy? Because if it is, then like you can just basically hang it up. So I rather tend to believe, right? And I think, as you said it, I think people want to believe. It's just that, like Tucker said, what do I believe?
Yeah, like what do you bid? Like, in terms of utility on ETH, like what do you bid, right? Because it's like, you're right, there is anything that's like fundamental or utility is quote unquote, well, not quote unquote, but it's there's a VC behind it, right? Which is, I'm just like, can you build something like a Uniswap without having like high FTV, low float type of, you know what I mean? Like, has that existed ever? Like,
but like, for example, Uni is probably one of the best contenders to be that utility coin, because Uni is an exchange that people just love to use and will continue to use it, because it's like the first gateway to DEX, right? And it definitely does produce fees and revenues. Like, it's a very profitable one. And what you want to do then is share that revenue with token holders, basically. And that is a game changer, in my opinion. And then you would see big guys bid it, because you can start to apply stuff like PE ratio to the stuff, right? And so forth. Plus, you can use that Uni not just as a stock, right? Because it would just be a stock at a point, but you can use it as a tokenized, obviously governance token, to decide on the future of like the fees and so forth. But you can use it also on the exchange and few others too, which differentiates it from a typical security, in my eyes at least. And then it becomes very interesting. Aave, in my opinion, becomes very interesting too. And I think there are a few others. I agree that there is not many of them right now, but we also know that the market likes to solve it in time. And right now we are sort of in like this very weird period, which I think is not going to last that long. But as long as it is, we sort of gotta respect it.
And I don't think that, and I want to like say this, I don't think that speculation is inherently a bad thing in crypto. I really don't. I mean, I think that speculation is the bedrock of crypto. It's ultimately why we're all here. I just think it's, how do you kind of take advantage of that in a way that, accrues value towards assets? And you kind of pointed it out, Jackus, right? Like revenue sharing for token holders. I think this is something that Hyperliquid is doing a great job of as well. Kind of like owning the casino is a great investment thesis for a lot of these assets, because speculation is not going away. people are always going to want to gamble on chain. I think it's just a matter of we're going to kind of oscillate between how much or how I would say blatant that value extraction can occur. And I would say over the last few weeks, it's gotten quite blatant and I mean, unarguably very malicious in the extent that the value extraction is occurring.
Retail extraction is happening. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm just like, why does Uni like only have 60% of their coins on the market? You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, that thing has been around forever. Like,
yeah,
why are there still unlocks on something like that? You know, I'm just like, God, you just can't find. Like, I'm looking at Aave. Aave's pretty much fully diluted. Like, FDV's 4 bill, market cap's 3.8, so that's good enough for me. But it's hard to find utility on ETH that's not like, you know, has unfavorable tokenomics
or just, you know, straight up ponsifying the chain.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything on ETH kind of fits into that category. So, you know, people say, oh, well, crime's not being committed. Well, there's also not really anything of value being built on ETH. I think the speculative aspect is that it can be built on ETH. We've kind of said that the, you know, what we want to see from ETH in the future is probably the tokenization of assets built on ETH, of TradFi assets, really just kind of like intermingling the layer between CeFi and DeFi to basically just kind of add another layer to the TradFi Ponzi. And maybe that's all ETH is capable of doing. But, you know, building ways that, like I said, you can continue to get yield on existing assets that you own, like an ETH, while continuing to kind of have that autonomy over your own finances. Like that to me has always been kind of why I value ETH, at least. So I don't know, not to get on any like sort of soapbox about it, but I do think that betting on fundamental utility being built on ETH is still inherently speculative, which is why I would also argue there's still upside in holding ETH over the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is. The comments, OXO is one. They're talking about Tau is another. Is Tau on ETH? I guess it is, yeah.
I think it is technically.
But yeah. Can't you hold it natively in its own wallet?
I believe so.
But it's an ERC20.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I know people love ENA for like utility on ETH because, I mean, really like the primary utility of something like ENA is kind of arbitraging funding rates, keeping the market from becoming too dislocated so it can generate a yield for your assets, right? Kind of that same thing, but I'm not the biggest fan of ENA, and I also think the VC bloat on ENA is pretty pronounced. I'm not sure what it is right now, but I remember at one point, the FDV is probably still over like $20 billion on this thing.
That's crazy. 40 cents. I remember trading it was like $1.20.
It's $6 billion. I way overstated it, but it was 20 billion at the highs like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like my toughest part is I look at ENA chart and I just do not see a reason why it doesn't revisit the lows.
The monthly looks really bad. Like horrifically bad.
Yeah, like it can have bounces, right? That would be like it can bounce to, I do not know, like 55 cents, whatever, maybe higher. But the thing is probably a little bit higher, you know, like maybe 60 cents. But I'm not seeing it bottoming here and going to new highs. And maybe I'm seeing it wrong. And if that's the case, then I would like to see the arguments for why should we bottom here.
I can't make one. I won't be the person to make one for ENA, but no, I've actually had a lot of fun bullying this coin over the last few weeks. I'm not gonna lie.
Wait, you were bullying it, but actually you were being bearish on it.
Yes.
So you were berishing it, not bullying it, but berishing
Wow, Shakis. Wow, I've never heard that one before.
it.
Little wordplay there.
Yeah.
A little one.
And I know, but yeah, I mean, you talk about like kind of the two DeFi assets on ETH, right? I'm not talking about in general, but kind of the two DeFi assets with the best PMF. People will usually say ENA, and then they'll also say Pendle. That's Pepe. They'll say Pendle, which has given us a great bounce from a pretty high time frame support, but I don't think it really changes. And in the same way with ENA, Jack, is like, do we really expect this sort of structure to U-turn into new highs? I would just say color me skeptical.
The toughest part is like not saying it happens anymore, probably, but just hypothetically speaking, Pendle could bounce all the way to $4.5.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't change a dime of it probably revisiting the lows again. These ones.
I mean, it looks like it's in the makings of the beginning, or not quite the beginning, but maybe it's like it's just finishing the second loop of like a euthanasia coaster. I don't know how you feel about that, but I mean, I remember seeing, obviously these things can look very different in the way that they downtrend. It could be like an ENA where it just goes straight for the low, or it could be like a Matic, for example, that has effectively been in a downtrend since the end of 2021 and still, I would say, hasn't quite broken down to zero yet somehow. Devil magic keeping that thing at these current valuations, I would say. But I haven't looked at Matic in a while. I remember last year that was my favorite coin to short.
It's at the
That's
lows,
true. I remember.
It's at the June lows from 22.
Jeez, man.
Like
this took a really long time to.
That is
still hasn't.
Asia.
Yeah, it still hasn't come all the way back down yet.
I remember we were looking for 4 cents.
There are VCs probably still selling in profit.
Yes.
Did you guys hear, or what is your take? Because you probably heard about it, but what is your take about the record ETH shorts that we see being floating around on Twitter? What is your take on it,
Tommy?
I mean, it's. I just don't think it's very wise to assume they're all explicitly directional shorts, which is what I've seen a lot of people do. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. There are a lot of shorts on ETH. This is something I've talked about before. But right now, you look at where ETH is within this range, would you really say that shorts that came in over the last 9 to 12 months are offside on like an average basis? I would say no, because we're at range lows. So I think if you want to squeeze shorts, you need to slow grind up. You need to get back towards those highs to really start to threaten them. But again, that's assuming that all the short interest, all the open interest is explicitly directional. And I don't think that that's the case, because I've said this before. ETH's total OI right now is more than twice what Bitcoin's high was in the 2021 cycle. So if you are in the camp that you just want to view the OI as directional, right? Like, okay, I'm punting long, I'm punting short, right? There's no other incentives in the market. Just I'm punting long, I'm punting short. Then you're effectively saying, okay, ETH's open interest is twice that of what Bitcoin's was in 2021, but ETH is trading at like a fourth of the market cap that Bitcoin was. I would say if you are viewing it as purely directional, that's a lot more concerning than if you're not. But I don't think that's a nuanced enough way to view the way that the current market is operating. TradFi is very involved. Ultimately, there are a million different reasons why somebody is taking an ETH short. We just saw a hedge fund this week report a $3 billion ETH short.
Oh my God.
Strictly for a basis trade, right? Like they're literally just doing this to collect a yield, and people want to call these guys directional punters. So I think Tucker.
Wait, Tucker. they didn't call them directional traders. They call them literally gamblers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. There are a lot of shorts on ETH. I think there's a lot more. There are a lot more competing incentives and positioning in this market than there was in 2021. So,
But Tommy, do you think when we get? I kind of think when we get the staking ETF, the basis trade is going to be hindered, right? Like there
think so?
shouldn't be. I mean, if you can, if the fees are minimal and boomers want to take the basis trade easily, they just throw it in a staking ETF rather than, put shorts on and buy spot, like, and stake it. I mean, if that was me, I would just say, here, take this money and put it in the staking ETF. But I don't know that the majority of the basis traders are boomers at this point. I don't know.
I mean, we'll never know, truthfully, until the OI kind of comes off. I just think it's unhealthy to assume that it's all directional, long shorts. There's a lot of things that have gone into it. Basis trades, pair trades, hedges that aren't really squeezable, I'm sure are going to be part of it as well. So I don't know. It's kind of tough, but I'm just treating it from, okay, are we at range lows? Are we at range highs? Well, who is the vulnerable party in this situation? Because local momentum will turn into high time frame momentum ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think, I mean, the biggest threat that the basis trades have been creating isn't really for ETH. It's more for something like ENA, which is, literally just trying to arb those funding rates. That's its entire utility. And then you have somebody in TradFi come in and put on a short on ETH to capture the basis trade with a market cap, or rather with a value of a position that's almost 300 or almost a 3x on ENA's total circulating market cap. So, I think TradFi is kind of making ENA worthless, more or less. But I don't know yet what that will mean for ETH.
We'll see. I mean, I do see like the case for ENA, right? It's just, I don't know. It looks pretty bad right now, but
billion FDV, Tucker.
Am I what?
Are you buying ENA at 6 billion FDV?
What's the circ on it?
It is 1.2
billion.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. I mean, dude, especially if the VCs were able to just stake their yield. I mean, oh my God, that's what happened to Dime. That's what you know what I mean. That's what happened to all the modular coins last year. All these guys just got seed, staked it, and then sold the yield every day for like a year, and then you get the Dime chart. So yeah, that if that's not the case, then maybe, but I don't know. It's gotten hammered.
Yes, it has. Well, DeFi to me, I've obviously been kind of prospecting shorts mostly in that area. I still think that's to me the most interesting area, at least from like a downside momentum standpoint. But I'll be honest, like Solid's beginning to become a bigger part of my radar, even at these prices. But I don't know. Do you guys have any other coins that we want to talk about? I know we've talked a lot about ETH. We've talked a lot about Sol today. We want to talk about
First of all, we said we will not get these guys get too close to us. There is some guy dash iron something. They just keep spamming some shit in the chat all the time. It's like you are bullish, you are bearish every day, and then ha ha ha, and fooling people, and I do not even know. Listen. You behave here or you're out.
Jack is laying down the law.
Yeah, lay it down, Jack.
We wanna keep the like it's okay. Listen, if you wanna ask question, it's okay. If you come in with constructive criticism, something, we can debate that. But like no more of this. We wanna make this because there's people who like enjoy coming to the streams, and they are not engaging because we previously had like people spamming token addresses in the chat. We had people attacking each other and so forth. We want to make the space pretty clean for people to come in and comment. Those are usually the quiet guys who just watch, do not comment as much. So yeah, that's the direction. You're not holding anyone accountable. You're just spamming shit, honestly.
Well, I think, I mean, I could see how sometimes it's confusing, right? I mean, most of the titles have been about Chop this week, obviously, but like, you know, one day we're green, one day we're red. It's like, yeah, the market's going to be the market. But like in general, I think all of us are pretty aligned. And that's also partially why people can get confused, because I don't have the same biases. Tommy doesn't have the same biases. Jack is on short-term, mid-term, long-term price action. It's not 100% consistent all the time, right? Max, Louis, Will, Bobby, you know what I mean? Like that's why there's a bunch of us. So I understand why it can be confusing. Like, oh, you guys were bearish. Oh, you guys were bullish. It's like, I don't know. I mean, just we're both. You know, it's just like we're wrong all the time. Like I'm wrong all the time. You know what I mean? But it's like that's why I have a team of guys who, you know, are good. And it's like if you like somebody, listen to them. So that's partially what I see is an issue with people being like, oh, you're this, oh, you're that. So just wanted to put that out there for everyone.
The thing is that like you will always get complaints from all parties. It doesn't matter what you do. And then obviously you have some people that just make up blatant lies. But like you will get people who will be mad that we are all, you know, bullish, bearish, doesn't matter. And then at the same time, you will have someone who get mad that, you know, one guy is bearish while the other is bullish. So like, so like you'll get people complaining at one thing, and then if you do the other, you'll have people complaining doing the other. It's like when you have a central banker, right? And you have people telling him that he should lower the rates, and then you have other half telling him he should raise the rates.
That's like the beauty of a market, right?
Yeah, that's the beauty of a market. And it's about being in a fair space where people share thoughts, and then people think those thoughts are interesting or not.
Yeah, and I mean, I really think that at least like short-term direction, because I make this joke in the Discord. I think, you know, it's harder to predict short-term price action for obvious reasons, right? Because there's just way more unpredictability and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, you look at the impact on risk assets that I think the 10-year is having. Very, very flashy and exciting, I know, to talk about things like the 10-year, things like the dollar. But ultimately, I think that's really what's dictating price action at the moment, right? Like we saw a push higher on the 10-year a few weeks ago. Risk kind of was delayed a little bit after it in the dump, at least crypto was. If this makes another high, I think you can assume the low for a lot of risk is probably not in. But at the same time, it's so interesting because, you know, equities look so good. Trading near all-time highs, they've been basically unfazed by the fact that rates have been moving higher. Only crypto has really been impacted by that. But I do think that I don't really adhere to the doomerism, right? That people will compare like credit card debt, you know, second top of a cycle, whatever. I don't think the comparisons to 2008 are valid at all, because one, the dollar is in a completely different position than it was in 2008. This is something that Will and I have talked about. You look at the dollar right before some of its biggest declines. 2022 is kind of an exception. The dollar is usually going straight down before a lot of these declines, right? Like if you're looking at, you know, 2008, for example, take a look. I think a lot of
Hmm.
that has to do with the quality of like debt and collateral. But you can see the dollar is nuking, literally nuking into the top of 2008. Before, obviously, you had the big surge higher, but we're looking at something, in my opinion, completely different. Like
Yeah.
this, I don't think you're going to get a new dollar high. It's been much stronger than I expected, and I could still see it making maybe one more stab higher. But this to me looks distributive. It looks like it's ultimately going to be rolling over soon. If this is the beginning of a downtrend in the dollar, then I cannot get in the camp that, okay, this is a cyclical top akin to like 2008 for equity markets, and crypto is just front running it. Sure, crypto could be front running a move down on equities, but I actually think equities could be going into a pretty prosperous period here pretty soon. Maybe I'm in the minority who thinks that, because obviously equities have already marked up a lot from the 2022 lows. But, if they're going to be cutting rates, if the dollar is going to be nuking, how can I be that bearish on equity markets? In that scenario, especially when the dollar hasn't been materially nuking, for a very long time, at least since like 2023.
Tommy, will you pull up TLT for me?
Yeah, I can look at TLT.
That the TLT Kingmaker, that was you've been watching for a while. If you
Yes.
remember that, that was because we thought that was gonna happen that first bottom, like mid 23, I think, and then it just distributed, came back down. But I mean, I still think unless something is structurally changed, like fundamentally changed with our bond market and our auctions, then at some point this is gonna fly. But it's sometimes it flies because everything is terrible, right? Like people flood into long in bonds because things look horrendous, aka
That's
equity
true.
risk, right? So that's not exactly the reason we would want it to rip. But it can go up
Yeah.
and down with economic prosperity, right? Like go look at 2012 to 2020. But what do you think?
No, I mean, this is very confluent with my opinion on the 10-year. I think the 10-year is going to 5%. Somebody's kind of already highlighted in the comments, why do I think they're going to cut rates while inflation rises? Well, I think rates are going to rise first to 5%, and then I think you're going to see Trump fight the Fed. I really don't think the current incentives of the administration align in any way with a multi-year bear market. Sure, the prevailing narrative is that the dollar is going to continue to be strong. We're going to continue to stop government spending. I think that's just a narrative, to be honest. That we're seeing really at the onset of the presidency. I do think that you're going to see that stance relax a little bit. And Trump's kind of already hinted at this, right? He wants to lower interest rates. Inflation is not, I think we can all agree that inflation is a much bigger problem than talking heads have kind of communicated with us. But I also know that the wealth effect that the market creates is much more important than the inflation that American families feel at this level, right? Like 2 to 3% on inflation. So to me, the end game is that inflation is going to flare back up. They're probably going to cut interest rates. Inflation is going to come back. It's going to force pretty much everybody back into this market. Or, if you weren't already in it, you're going to continue to put money in it. And I think it's going to lead to ultimately probably a blow off in risk prices. I truly believe there are one of two ways that the equity market can go from here. We either practice austerity and you see price action on the S&P that looks like the 1960s, the 1980s, right? Bull market, bear market, bull market, bear market, bull market, bear market, but you lost 50% of your purchasing power in that range. Or you're going to see a much more aggressive markup across the board, right? You can think about any asset bubble if you want to compare it to, but do you really think they're going to exercise austerity, especially when they're talking about dropping interest rates? They're talking about dropping the dollar. These, to me, are not things that you see right before a bear market. They're things that you usually see before price appreciation. So that's kind of where I'm standing. I think there can be weakness, obviously, as long as you have the 10-year and rates potentially trading into 5%. But I think when you start to hit that level, the risk that rates are going to come down is much greater than that they're going to continue higher, even though inflation's a huge problem. I will give you that. I just don't think it's as big of a problem as the wealth effect that the market creates, because let's be honest, the market is the American economy. So to go back to TLT, if my plan for the 10 years is that it's going to 5% before 3%, then I think TLT is going to do something like this, right? And sure, it could pull back after that, but generally speaking, I think this is what I'm looking for on TLT. It's very aligned with my thoughts on rates and also the dollar.
Yeah, that sounds, actually, that makes so much sense. I think this is a good chance of playing out, exactly even for that reason you've spoken about. Like, at some point it will look too horrible that it will be just too tempting to bid, right? And it will do that, probably do that bounce. I think another interesting metric here is that, like, we play different time frames probably than most people, right? Like, so many people, they are hooked up on the hourly, even on the daily. But the reality is that 2 years ago, most people were bearish everything, calling for the largest recession. That's the reality. And nowadays, and this is, by the way, people speak about sentiment, right? And I think that's just, it's becoming cringe to a big degree, because, like, and I was making fun of this today earlier, but like, people spend really long time trying to make their XFeed as best as possible, only so that they can say, hey, I'm gonna counter trade it later on, right? Like, it makes no sense. He is trying to find the most valuable accounts. You get them on your feed, and then you say, my feed is bullish, I'll counter trade it, or my feed is bearish, I'll counter. Anyways, the sentiment question is really stupid to me, because everyone will have a different echo chamber, and you will have people that are bullish because others are bearish, and then you will be fading them and so forth. So it's really highly subjective. What matters is really the positioning of the large guys. And I, contrary, have a pretty decent stat here. It was done by research from Bank of America. And the reality is, so that's like real stats, real point of view on sentiment. And they've done it, across 200 portfolio managers that have assets of around 500 billion market cap. So it's a pretty sizable statistic. This is not like your regular Anon CT guru, right? And his sentiment. This is real sentiment and real positioning. And the reality is that 2 years ago, they were holding largest cash since the dot-com bubble at the lows of 2022. Nowadays, they are holding 3.5 cash. 3.5% of their holdings is in cash. That's one of the lowest numbers in, if not, in fucking long time. It's like nearly all-time lows. 80% of the same guys are bullish nowadays and basically all into the market. And I was saying those 2 years ago, I'm being bullish on equities for this time, which, by the way, this statistic doesn't mean that the largest recession is coming. It just means exactly what you have shown. Like that 10-year can spike up high. These people will slightly change the bias, change the positioning. You'll get like a minor shakeout. Minus 10% on SPX can happen, and that's it, right? It doesn't have to be something great that lots of perma bears are thinking of, but it's quite obvious that people that have been pretty bearish 2 years ago are now pretty bullish and all in into the equity market. Again, I'm not saying I think we see some great recession, because I do not think so. I think speaking for this next term of Trump, I think he's going to establish his administration is going to establish pretty good conditions for entrepreneurs and generally people. So I think the U.S. equity market is looking good for the coming period. But just like we said on the TLT, right? Sometimes things just look too bad, so people with money look to bid it. And sometimes it's the same with the market. Like sometimes people are just too overpositioned. Market shakes out a little and then continues in the same direction. But it's something to keep in mind, I would say.
I think some bear chop over the next few months for equities would be, I mean, because I want to say after that August 5th shakeout in equity markets, there were a lot of people allocated to the market from a percent standpoint. Like you pointed out, Jack, is before that dump. They're weak hands. I think a lot of it is very weak conviction, because I remember after August 5th, a lot of them, I can't remember exactly what the statistic was, but it was basically saying like a lot of Delta indicated that people were selling their exposure or like a percentage of their exposure because of that event. So it's I think you have a lot of people in the market. A lot of them have very weak hands. This is true of crypto as well. I think they believe in their thesis, but they don't quite know why they believe in it to an extent. But yeah, no, I think probably a few months of bearish chop in equities would go a long way, scare some people out, and then it's like I said, I think Trump's going to end up fighting the Fed, and that's really going to be. I think when that starts to happen, that's your signal, like okay, interest rates are about to drop. I don't know if there's going to be QE accompanied with that or not, but if interest rates are going to drop, just from a correlation standpoint, you're probably going to see the market pump, and that's probably the start of a much larger move higher.
So we do want to see Trump fight the Fed. Is that what
you're
saying?
Yes. Yes. And he will. I firmly believe that he will.
Yeah. I mean, he's already made comments like we need interest rates lower and, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean,
if there's any weakness in the equity market, I think you're going to see the rhetoric really pick up.
Yeah. Oh my God. All-time highs, huh? Jeez. But the question we have to ask is, if we do see weakness in equities, how are our coins affected?
Yeah, right. I mean, Bitcoin structurally is very correlated to the S&P and the NASDAQ right now, which is why I feel even better kind of about like the fact that beta within crypto is undergoing this like cyclical correction. Mid-cycle correction, as I've been referring to it as. Bitcoin could just trade very in line with the S&P and with the NASDAQ, but of course, crypto, our coins, memes could end up taking a larger hit still. I guess we'll see. I think it comes down to the 10-year, right? Do you think the 10-year goes higher? I'm in the camp that I do think it goes higher. I think it goes to 5%.
That would be a pretty decent move out of the 10-year.
Indeed. That was a pretty awesome comment from Jesse. We appreciate you as well, man, and the comment in no certain order.
Did you guys do the super chat? Somebody was asking about Pepe.
We did not.
It was for Pepe, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Tommy, I want to see your Pepe chart.
Well, I hope Joe is still around. Give us a comment if you are, but if you are not, then hopefully you rewatch from the playback.
Yeah, I would say my view on Pepe is about the same as it was when we first came into this level, which is that this is literally a must hold for Pepe, or you're going to see it marked down again alongside ETH, alongside Solana. I'm in the camp that it probably will, but do I think you should really go like selling recklessly, shorting into this level? Not really. the odds aren't particularly in your favor when you're shorting support, right? You're betting on a level that has held up to this point for multiple taps to break down. So again, I'm not really trading Pepe here. I still hold a pretty decently sized bag, but I am aware that it's probably going to continue lower. At least that's just kind of my bias. I don't really have a level where I think it would come down into, though, right? I mean, I think meme coins are fun to trade in the sense that support and resistance levels exist, and then majors trend and they don't exist, right? But I don't have too much. I don't know if you guys have more alpha on Pepe than I do. I haven't really been trading this one as much over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've been focused more on other coins.
Yeah, I mean, it is all going to be up to ETH, right? Bitcoin first and then ETH, but I mean, kind of high time frame. There are some, if you just put RSI on there, like there's some pretty decent divergences printing.
I mean, this is the level.
Yeah.
I would say in any case, like if Pepe's coming down lower, if it's not, I just kind of think this this diagonal, for whatever reason, is kind of going to be like the guiding light going forward. I think it looks better on log, actually. Hold on. Yeah, that's about it. I think if you come down more, I think inevitably you're going to tap this again in the future. It's just a matter of when. And I like, for me, the thesis I have on Pepe, like Pepe could draw down 90% from here. I'd still have the exact same thesis. I think it's going much, much, much higher over the next few years. I think meme coins right now, it's so interesting to see the shift in rhetoric, for one, because I remember having these conversations with you guys about meme coin super cycle, probably like 6 to 8 months ago, even a year ago. And now we look back and the sentiment on meme coins is so terrible. But I think meme coins still serve the same purpose. It's just obviously liquidity isn't quite as I can't think of the word, but like it's not really benefiting them in the same way that it did before. There's just not as many tailwinds for meme coins, but I do think there will be. I think as we watch the dollar continue to be devalued, at some point people are going to be like, well, my dollar ain't worth shit. So I'm going to buy some ridiculous meme coin that I can buy a lot of. I kind of feel like the turning point on that narrative is going to be when Doge crosses $1. I don't know what you think about that, Tucker, but if one Dogecoin is worth more than $1, I think that's like a huge sentimental shift. So for me, I'm just kind of holding Pepe because I do think we'll end up there at one point or at some point in the future, but I don't know exactly when that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think if you get Doge over $1, that's a big. I mean, people have been waiting for Doge to hit $1 for almost 10 years. Well, yeah, basically 10 years at this point. But I mean, I think it probably will. Right? You probably need Bitcoin at like 140K, ETH at like 7K. Sol at like 400. Right? That's probably what you need to get Doge to $1. But yeah, that probably would be a decent shift in mindset of people like, wow, like I would rather hold my Doge than dollar bills. But yeah, I mean, going back to Pepe, like I agree. Like I think it's going a lot higher. I don't know. This is definitely that level, but we definitely need Bitcoin and ETH to, hang out here, right?
Yeah.
Like Bitcoin, if Bitcoin goes to like 90K again, that's gonna be very hard for some of these structures on memes. But
I think if for this to be a reversal, I'd be looking for something like this probably. And it probably won't take that much time, but more or less like that would be the type of structure I'd be looking for on Pepe. And when I say like, oh yeah, Pepe could go down 90% and I would still have the same thesis, I don't actually mean I think that Pepe is going down 90%. Let me please clarify that. I already saw a comment. I'm using ghoulish overkill there, but this is a put up or shut up level for Pepe. My thesis is kind of price agnostic is the best way I would put it. I do believe that billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of attention is eventually going to find this coin.
Yeah, I agree.
Do we have anything else that we want to look at before we start to wrap up?
I don't
This
think
one's still
so.
worth tracking.
Yeah, what are we at? 650. If it had held above 680, 690, that would have been nice. But
I would say if we can break back above that, that would be pretty big.
yeah,
Because we're battling this 50 level on the RSI. If you reclaim those highs, probably Confluent, you're going for at least 730, 740. But of course, you know, if we kind of reject this 50 level on the RSI, this downside momentum can continue to just kind of like dribble down. That's kind of how I view BNB.
somebody asked for Tau. That's one I haven't looked at in a while, but
Man, oh man. Tau.
I mean, it's up a lot from that. I mean, it wicked all the way to 230. It's up 80% off the low. That's crazy.
This coin's got really nice beta to it.
I think that RSI looks constructive.
Yes, it does. Yeah, this is worth tracking. This kind of reminds me a bit of Pepe at the end of 2023, a little bit. Wouldn't you say?
Pepe at the end of 2023.
Like this structure here.
Yeah, it does. I'm just pulling it up over here. Yeah.
Could be worth a buy. In general, like my AI quant, is not super bullish on AI. I don't think until like the fall again, because AI has actually been very seasonal cycle. I think that's something we've talked about on this show before.
Somebody asked for hype and Beam. I forgot about Beam. Oh my god.
I probably won't look at Beam, but we can look at hype.
Dude, Beam. Oh man. Oh wow, it's down bad. Yeah.
The funny part about hype is that I've been talking to Tucker Max about it for like a few weeks, saying, yeah, this coin's going to be the thing that gives us signal from this pivot, and it's just going sideways.
Well, I think it still can be. Like, I think if hype goes into like the 21s, a lot of those guys are going to be underwater, and it's going to probably waterfall a little bit. But
you know, people bought that breakout.
Yeah, for sure. But if it can just hang out between like 22 and 25 while Bitcoin figures it out, then I mean that's the most bullish thing.
There aren't many coins that actually look like, you know, Bitcoin's going to leg up again from here, which I know a lot of people have speculated. A lot of smart people have speculated Bitcoin's going to like 130, roughly 140K from here. Hyperliquid's one of the only tokens that I think is actually going to outperform to the upside, because most of these alts are just so beaten to shit that it's hard to expect too much from them. But Hype's got great PMF. Obviously, it's got a very loyal holder base, and there's really not that many reasons, in my opinion, to be structurally bearish on Hyperliquid as an asset. Although I will say in the near term, the launch of the EVM, right? Because I know that it happened over the last 2 days. That's really what gave that that super scammy wick that we saw on it a few days ago. This pump, the launch of the Hype EVM, kind of feels like the last catalyst in the near term for Hyperliquid. But I guess we'll see. I'm still looking for lower prices on this one. But talking about things that I want to buy off the low, this is the number one. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a bit of an enigma right now. We've been trying to use it for signal, but it has been chopping sideways. We await your direction, Hyperliquid, just as the market awaits resolution from this local pivot. But with that, I think that's a great spot for us to be wrapping things up, guys. Before we let y'all run, just wanted to share a few things with you all. But yeah, I hope you've all had a great Wednesday morning. We hope that you enjoyed the show. If you enjoyed the alpha that we shared on today's episode, come join the family, guys. We've got a few different ways that you can do that. Most notably through our premium Discord, guys. Come join 4 to 5 hours of alpha from us on live calls every single day. That's not an exaggeration. Sometimes we even go longer than 4 or 5 hours because we really like what we do ultimately. So we just kind of share our thoughts on the market, sometimes even our positioning. We've got a kick-ass community as well that misses pretty much nothing. So the cost of the Discord, man, I can vouch for a lot of people. They've definitely gotten their money's worth on the Discord. But of course, we also have been nice enough to package that together with the BB Terminal, which can be your go-to tool for this cycle, whether or not you are an active lower time frame trader. And let's be honest, if you are a lower time frame trader, there has been so much opportunity in this market over the last 2 weeks. I know ETH has been chopping, but these altcoins, man, I mean, they're providing a lot of volatility. It's been beautiful. So check out the BB Terminal. If you are a lower time frame trader, you can get great utility out of it. And if you are a long-term investor looking to make educated and data-driven decisions, of course, BB Terminal is a great product for you as well. And finally, soon, we'll have a product for you as well, on-chain degen. If you love being in meme coins, which right now, I mean, I know meme coins are a little bit derided. I know the trenches are a little bit derided, but that gambling mentality that that many participants have really isn't going anywhere. So it's not like on-chain will either. So we will continue to build out our degen function for you guys as well. So you will have your tool as well. So check out these two things, guys. Like I said, we were nice enough to package them together for you at discounted rates. Next, if you guys are looking to hone your educational base or even reach trading level mastery, we have a course as well that is BB Academy. If you want to learn from any of the speakers that you heard on today's show, we have a way for you to do that. So check that out as well. And lastly, but certainly not least, maybe managing this market volatility has been too difficult. Maybe picking winners has been too difficult. After all, and I feel like it's becoming pretty common opinion that those two things have been consistently difficult to do throughout this cycle. There is a way for the team to manage money for you. That is BB Wealth Management. We have an SEC registered hedge fund where we trade digital assets in a way that looks to maximize their history for upside returns, while obviously trying to minimize the downside risk posed in any financial market. So if anything that I just said over the last 2 minutes resonated with you, check out the description below this video. We have everything linked below. But yeah, that's it for today's episode of Market Check. We hope that you enjoyed the show. We'll be back for another episode tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is our typical start time, Monday through Friday, whenever the New York Stock Exchange is open. But do not forget to tune in for Wabi's show either, which is Market Talk. That is a Twitter space hosted through the Because Bitcoin account, as well as his personal. So make sure to stay following and subscribe to both of those accounts so you can be notified not just when he schedules those spaces, but also when he goes live. But that's it from us, guys, for real this time. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks again, as always, for tuning in. And of course, stay safe.